The theme of Expo 2020 in Dubai will be connecting minds, creating the future. This will be the first time a World Expo will take place in this part of the world in terms of the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. We are aiming to make it very unique, very different comparing to the others. We expect more than 25 million visitors. 70% of the visitors will be from outside UAE. This will be definitely unique opportunities to meet the world. So our expo will be unique. It will be a point where Dubai will be definitely the meeting point for the whole world. So we are inviting everybody to be part of it, to benefit from all the opportunities that this major events will present, and of course, to be able to be part of Dubai itself and the future of the city. Expo for us was very important in terms of the journey of Expo. The timing was so perfect when the bidding started, because it started in a time where there wasn't many activities going on, not only in Dubai, but around the world. So the whole journey really was major, I would say, experiment even for us. It unified the different government department, business community, and the public around very important vision, how to compete for something. We see it from the business community as the Olympics and the FIFA, maybe World Cup. So it was very important really to compete in an area that we never did before, to compete against big players. And not only we competed, but we won, and that was the other, I would say, major significant news for us. Expo 2020 still has, I would say, 5-6 years to come, but the confidence element already achieved. When we look at Dubai's story, it has a lot of elements. Expo is only one of these elements. This is very important to note. Expo 2020 is an important event. However, it's not the only thing we work for between now and the year 2020. Already, Dubai announced before the event by a few months its vision for 2020 in terms of the tourism, which is to achieve 20 million tourists. So whether Expo 2020 was achieved or not, Dubai was always building itself to be able to achieve and attract this number of visitors, and not only to attract them for that year, but to maintain them going forwards. Already we had many plans to build the city, to build the infrastructure, to build the shopping malls, to build the hotels, to be able to attract this numbers of tourists, this number of businesses. This is very important to be able not only to build a city for this important event, but to be able to sustain it going forward and to be able also to build it with excellence. We expect almost the whole economy will be able to grow because of the Expo. There will be a lot of investments in infrastructure, which will support the real estate, which will support the construction sector. Will require more hotels, as I said, whether for this event or just to serve the growth that we expect in the city of Dubai. So the tourism sector expect to grow. We expect to see more restaurants, more recreation areas, more shopping malls. All of these things to be able to support the growth from tourists and the growth of the population of the city of Dubai, the population of the UAE, and the population of the whole Gulf region. Dubai is a global city, so what's happening internationally will have an impact in Dubai one way or another. Dubai was tested during the economic crisis and was able to recover quite fast and to go back to the growth levels. Dubai always tried to benefit from the challenges and the opportunities, whether in the region or globally, and look at it from not only a challenge, but opportunity. And I think this is give advantage to Dubai, as long as we maintain our position, as long as we stay competitive, as long as the public-private partnership continue, I believe Dubai will continue its position going forward.
apologies, we were just chatting amongst ourselves here. Welcome to the afternoon session of the second day of the Africa Global Business Forum. I'm Becky Anderson. In November 2013, the United Arab Emirates won the right, of course, to host the World Expo in Dubai in 2020. This will be the first time that the World Expo staged Middle East, North Africa and South Asia region, which is fantastic. With the theme Connecting Minds, with the theme Connecting Minds, Creating the Future, Dubai's World Expo promises, and I quote, a powerful spirit of partnership and cooperation building on the UAE's success in pioneering new paths of development and innovation. So, how do you guys get involved? How do we all get involved? What's the story? What's the vision? I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Her Excellency Reem Al Hashmi, UAE Minister of State and Managing Director of the Dubai Expo 2020, who tells me that she was jointly responsible for the UAE's successful bid. Thank you for being with us, Reem. What's the vision?
I think, as you mentioned in your opening remarks, this is the first time that a world exposition comes to our part of the world, comes to the Middle East, to North Africa, to the African continent, to Central Asia, to the Indian subcontinent. There's something incredibly special about having a World Expo that has been around for the last 160 years, but has never come to this part of the world. And so the vision is to try to create an inclusive platform that is open to all member states, but in particular pays attention to those that operate in our region. And what I mean by that is this expo has to be their expo. We happen to host this expo in Dubai, but it's actually an expo that is for the region. And we're committed to doing that through a whole series of mechanisms, particularly in the lead up to 2020. We are going to, after Milan 2015, going to be extremely active in reaching out to the different countries that represent our region, not only as governments, but also as entrepreneurs, parts of the private sector, etc. And I think to your point earlier about the Dubai team being responsible for the success of the bid, it was a joint responsibility. There have been so many in this room, many outside this room, who have been involved in making this expo a success, which is why it's such an inclusive expo, because I promise you, if you haven't heard already, everybody will claim that they had something to do with the success, and that's a good thing, because everybody feels vested in that victory.
We were just saying that if you hadn't won the bid, that you would have probably been responsible for the bid.
It would be only me, absolutely, yes.
Let's talk about the opportunities that will exist for perhaps members of the audience here in the room shortly. I just want to clear up a couple of things that I know will be of interest to those here. Over the years, World Expos have proved to be a benefit for some host countries and a burden or curse for others. To quote Expo officials, with a reasonable budget and a sound legacy plan, a World's Fair can become a transformative opportunity. How do you, though, ensure that success, and with it the soft power and the PR that comes with it?
I think the responsibility is on us to really plan this properly. We need to make sure that it is an inclusive expo that actually makes sense way after the fair doors are closed. Because the expo is for 6 months only. But what happens beyond that? What happens beyond that to the site that we're actually going to be building? But not only in a physical sense, what's going to happen also to the partnerships that we're going to be creating between now and 2020? You see, at the end of the day, it's what you make of it. You can look at this as a real estate project that's going to cost X billion euros. In our case, it's going to be probably between 5 to 7 billion euros of actual infrastructure. A lot of it is already planned for 2020. So the extension of the rail, the extension of the electricity, the extension and the expansion of the airport, etc. But then, is that all we want? Was all of this about a new physical site? Absolutely not. There was much more to it. There is much more to it. And it's our commitment for the next several years to make sure that the partnerships we build with the people and with the communities that have voted for us, and also those that haven't voted for us, begin to see the value of what a Dubai presence would actually mean for them. And I think forums such as this are demonstrative of the fact that there is value here. We'll need to harness that energy and make sure that we can capitalize it in 2020.
So how do you do that then? I've got a number of other questions about costs and funding and legacy and where you see the great examples of mega projects and World Expos in the past and perhaps where you see the failures and what you've learned. But let's talk about what the offer is to, for example, African countries from Dubai Expo 2020. What's on offer physically? What's on offer?
So unlike any other World Expo that has happened in the past, every single nation gets to have their own pavilion. Usually, countries of particular geographic presences are bulked up in one building or one district or one space. With our Expo, we plan to give each nation its own pavilion, not scattered geographically, but sort of cross-pollinating with other nation states. So you won't have the Caribbean zone and the Africa zone and the Latin America zone. Everybody will be sort of properly mingled into one another. So that's one, in terms of a physical space. Every nation, because every nation has the right to vote, therefore will have the right to have their own pavilion. The second thing is we are committed to actually taking on the cost of the building of that pavilion, so that whatever national budget from X country is actually focused on content development. And we are also committed to working with them on developing the type of content that will actually have the most presence and the most prominence in the Expo site.
So you'll build the pavilion and you'll help provide aid or funding for the projects that will be part of that pavilion. Give me an example that you might come up with.
So, for example, if we're talking about content development and marketing, which is what we've committed to, if there are solutions that work in a country like, let's say, Lesotho or Swaziland, for instance, then it will be our responsibility, let's say irrigation solutions or farming solutions or even particular large infrastructure projects that the government wants to push forward or particular entrepreneurs that are looking for seed funding. Our responsibility is to matchmake that with the rest of the Expo community, which includes more than 180 nation states and includes more than 40 corporations.
Can I then ask you about the costs and funding, because there is sparse detail. I know at a conference yesterday there was a suggestion that the RTA, the Roads Transport Authority here, will be spending or needing funding to the tune of some 30 billion dirham, I believe. Just how high do you think the costs could go, and where is the funding from? Shanghai looked at or admitted to something like $4.5 billion, ended up being, some people say, as much as 50 billion. I mean, is that affordable? When you consider what you're committing to, not just on the infrastructure project in and of itself, but to those in the audience who might be interested in taking part, is this really realistic?
It's realistic if you believe that we're actually building a new site for 2030, 2040 and beyond. It just happens to host a World Expo in 2020. So the city is growing and the city is moving and it has a 2020 plan and beyond that. And so everything that is being built is not only for the Expo, because the Expo is a transient period of time. RTA is not going to put in all that money because they want to service 25 million visitors for 6 months. They're putting in all that money because the city is growing and expanding and will take on that new area of the city. And therefore, if you have a long-term plan that is beyond 2020 but is prepared for 2020, then it's actually not only realistic, it's also even profitable.
Can I just put a question to you that I guess some people in the audience might be asking themselves? Certainly it's a question that I've been asked since I've been living in the UAE and this bit has been announced. There is that kind of wider, bigger Dubai picture post-2008, inevitably bringing with it concerns of another sort of debt-fueled bubble, and particularly as Dubai deals with sort of debt repayments between 2017 and 2020, you've got this kind of period of time when things could be quite tough. So again, you know, are you can you ensure the audience, as it were, and are you completely convinced that this is something that is achievable at this point? I guess the question is, what have you learned from projects, mega projects of the past, where perhaps people have had problems in funding, and how do you believe you can get over those hurdles?
I think there are two elements to this. One is you have to have a very robust long-term plan associated to the mega project that you're going to cater to. If you don't have that long-term plan, as to my earlier note of 2030 and beyond, then you give yourself like a time bomb. And that's not a good idea. The second thing is, one must realize that we are operating in an emerging region. We are operating in a geographic space that is very strategic, that so far there is no real alternative to what the UAE is offering, whether it's the business climate, or it's the critical mass of talent that are here, or its openness, or its infrastructure, or the strength of its airport and port, or I could go on and on and on. But because we're coming to the table with a dream, but that's also validated in facts and validated with a track record. The global financial crisis made us stronger. It made us recognize mistakes, and we adapted to it and recovered from it much faster than even we anticipated. So those lessons are very, very clear and still very, very fresh.
I was talking to a couple of ladies on my way in today, getting back to the offer and what you expect, or what our expectations should be about the pavilions. And somebody said to me, please ask Her Excellency about the offer to African women, for example, and Africa's youth, which is all, I know, very close to your heart. And as you talk about sort of projects and the sort of conception of what these pavilions might look like, how about addressing that question?
I'm so happy that she caught you and asked you that. I was going to probably flag it myself, so thank you to that. Thank you. Youth, of course, in our part of the world represent a very large and important sector of our demographic. So to try to do something without including them is, quite frankly, stupid. And we are very cognizant of the fact that we're building something for the future. If they're not involved and included in that process, there will be a massive disconnect between what we say we're going to do and who we're trying to service. And so from the very beginning we've said, and you've heard the statistics, more than 50% of our part of the world, and when I say our, I include everybody represented in this room and even those who aren't. The African continent is, we consider our hinterland. We consider our success very, very much integrated to the success of Africa. And so 50% of the population is under the age of 20. So how do you build for something without including their aspirations, their ideas? And how do you say you want to be inclusive, but then don't bring them on board? So we are committed to making sure that this is an expo for the future. And the future of this region lies in the hearts of the youth of this region.
I know that you have a wider remit than just Dubai Expo 2020, as if that wasn't enough. I mean, the African portfolio, to all intents and purposes, is very much your remit as well. So can you just talk us through what, again, your vision outside of the Expo is, but your vision about the relations between the UAE and the African continent is going forward? We've clearly had a lot of discussion about that at this forum, but I just want to get your thoughts.
You know, everybody talks about how Africa is the next big thing, and how every country, every large country, developed country, etc., is coming and targeting Africa for its resources, for the opportunities, etc. And that always disturbs me, even on a personal level, because I think Africans speak for themselves. If they choose to partner with you, it's because they feel a sense of value that they have found. And this sense of, I'm there because there's so much X minerals or there's so much X opportunity, it seems a little bit condescending to me. And Africa has been around for centuries, but the interest seems to be rather recent right now. Since our inception as a nation, 1971, the UAE has been committed to the continent, really committed because they believe in what I said earlier, which is our success is very much yours. We're too small to try to do the things we want to do on our own. We can't do it. We can't do it if we don't have the endorsement of the region. But let the region speak for themselves. And we're kind of, I'm through with people who claim to know ex-minister, ex-public official, ex-etc., to try to open the door for you. I mean, that mindset is getting a little old.
And it does exist though still, doesn't it?
In certain places it may, but I think in a large majority, and I've been privileged to travel Africa quite extensively, it doesn't work anymore, Becky, because they know when they're being disrespected. And I think you're more and more seeing that Africa is actually changing. It's not how it used to be decades ago. They are incredibly attuned to where their interests are. And the responsibility is for us to make sure that our interests align with theirs, as opposed to the other way around.
And where do you see the best opportunities for the UAE then in Africa?
Look, each space is a little bit different. So West Africa is different from South and East, etc. I think there are opportunities across the board. We have a traditional, closer relationship with East Africa by virtue of proximity. But we've begun to really strengthen our ties with the nations of West Africa as well, Sub-Saharan Africa. I wouldn't single out, to be frank, but I do believe very strongly, with all the conviction that I can reflect today, that there are places in Africa where you can't do business as it used to be, business as usual. That doesn't work anymore. And you have to also recognize that if you don't come to the table with a sense of dignity and respect, that you want to develop a true partnership, it's not going to fly.
Let me just take you back. I want to see whether there's any questions actually from the audience, because this should be yours as much as it should be my discussion with Her Excellency. But just bring you back to the Expo for one moment before I take questions from the audience. What's your dream or vision in the end? And what keeps you awake at night about the next 5 years?
Well, I can't think of 5 years. I can tell you what keeps me awake now, which is this pregnancy. It's hard to sleep.
Bless you. Thank you for being with us today.
I think I'm very conscious of the fact that we made a very serious commitment, and we have to deliver on that, because our word is associated to it. So we have to make sure that what we said we would do, we actually will end up delivering. And I'm not so worried about having a fantastic site, because, mashallah, you've seen the UAE, you've seen what we've been able to build, and you've seen how we can, put out a really great show, a really great exhibition. Alhamdulillah, we have that strength, mashallah. I'm more concerned about how do we make sure that what we end up doing lives beyond it. And that is what I'm very committed to ensuring, that the way we set this up, with a strong legacy plan, with a strong long-term plan, with the right kinds of sustainable partnerships that are meaningful, actually gives us a historic kind of expo.
Do you think that was very much part of the reason that you won the bid? I mean, we talk about these legacy projects with mega projects, and we're well aware that sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But I know that the organizing committees were always incredibly enthusiastic about it.
I think we won primarily because people believed in Dubai. And I think that that's a very strong message, that the Emirates has a credibility. It's also, I believe, I was part of the IRENA campaign. I think we also won IRENA because they believed in what we were trying to say. It was a very realistic, and it was a very, I think, authentic request for a vote. This is why I'm saying, you need to be able to approach your counterpart with a sense of dignity and respect and integrity that becomes evident when it isn't there. And I think that we've been privileged to have not only such a large amount of votes in our favor, but also for the first time in BAE history, this many countries voted for one candidate city. That hasn't ever happened before. And that also goes to show you that when a small country like the UAE was competing against larger countries like Brazil and Russia and Turkey, that there was a message that we were trying to say to the global community that actually resonated.
I'll ask on behalf of those in the audience who will be wondering how one starts forming the partnership with you. What's the process?
So technically, for the time being, in technical terms, we are not yet official host cities until we submit our registration document next November. And as you probably know, there's another World Expo happening next year, which is Milan.
Right.
So Milan 2015 will have to come and go before we can officially be involved in not only talking officially to countries, but also starting our roadshows, etc. So it really, this period of time, or this respite, if you will, is for us to get our ducks in order, be prepared with what is the benefit to different sectors within the business community, different regions, different entrepreneurs, artists, volunteers, youth, etc., etc. But until November 15, when we submit our registration document, that is when we become official host cities. We are given the actual flag, and then it's countdown.
With respect to Milan, I think there'll be very few people in this room who won't be aware that I think it's been quite a struggle. Are you concerned about the image of Expo as Milan takes it on?
I think the Italians are in a difficult situation, but I think they're overcoming it. Their Expo is going to start in a couple of months. They're working really hard. We're very close to the 2015 Milan team, and I think they will be able to overcome it and really have a very nice and a very special Expo. But their Expo is different in the sense that it caters more to an Italian/European market. Our Expo is, by virtue of where we're located and by virtue of our size, actually a lot more diverse and a lot more international.
Would I be correct in saying that you're physically helping them out, or is this just sort of support at this point?
Physically help? No. Yeah. We are only building our pavilion.
I had to
That's
ask.
As far as
I had to
going.
ask as a journalist. Listen, any questions from the audience here? Let me see. Anybody? We're very quiet here today. Perhaps it's that after lunch thing. Did we say, hey, do you want to just stand up and shout? Oh, actually, there's a microphone here.
My name is Talal Hilali. I'm a managing partner of a family business that has been in the Emirates for the past 36 years. We are manufacturers of detergents, chemicals, plastics, steel wool in the Emirates. We are the first to manufacture, in fact. I've been to Africa quite often, and I would say that there's a huge opportunity for private sector to invest and to operate. And this is what we were looking forward to have. My question is that, do you think that we could get, as an Emirati companies, support from the local embassies, Emirati embassies in different African countries when it comes to investments?
Thank you.
Just so that I understand your question, Talal, you're looking for support from UAE embassies in African capitals for
as an
investment?
Emirati company.
As an Emirati company?
Yeah.
I can't see why not. I mean, you would know probably more than me. You've been around as an industry for so long that we are by nature a very open and a very welcoming kind of people. And so I cannot imagine you approaching one of our embassies in Addis Ababa or in Dakar or wherever, requesting certain assistance or certain information that then you would be told no to. There are, of course, certain restrictions on what it is exactly that you're asking for. If it's I don't want to speculate, but you understand what I mean. If it is about helping understand the lay of the land, then that's something that we offer to non-Emirati companies who come and approach us, and I've worked in embassies in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Can I see any more hands? Reem, I think you've been so... Oh, there's one. We'll take your question. I was going to say you've been so exhaustive in your narrative. I mean, to the extent that we've learned everything that we need to learn. Yes, sir.
Your Excellency, Mabruk. What is the plan for the Expo after the Expo?
It's nice to see you again. Well, after the exhibition, we plan to have several elements within our legacy site. Primarily, we're looking to build a university institution / academic institution that will have research centers associated to our 3 sub-themes: mobility, opportunity, and sustainability. We believe that with these 3, the UAE has exhibited some level of knowledge in being able to actually use that learning and house it and share it with others. So whether it's sustainability or public-private partnerships through opportunity, the opportunity sub-theme, and entrepreneurship, or mobility, which is transportation and logistics, the know-how that we've been able to harness over the years would be useful in that setting. But we're also looking at having a museum. Probably we're still debating which of the pavilions would actually transform into that. And then, of course, the exhibition center, which is currently near the trade center, will be moving to that site and capitalize on the presence or on the proximity of both the airport and the port. So those are tentative plans that we have in place for the legacy.
Excellent. Anybody else? Another question just here. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. Just to extend that question, can you just give us an insight into the direction of Dubai beyond 2030 and try and give us exposure into how you see the economy in terms of, because Dubai is now becoming reasonably expensive and a high-cost economy, and there are dangers of Dubai going the Singapore way. Do you see any, those kind of things, and how the country would be addressing such issues?
We've actually looked, and thank you for your question, we've actually looked at how certain mega events can have a negative impact on things like inflation and what have you. And that's definitely something we want to make sure we don't have here. It's already started, which much to our chagrin was something that post the win, everybody's rent started going up and everything started increasing, and that was something that we should have, I think, acted a little bit faster on. Definitely, as you lead up closer to 2020, you're going to see more of that. But if you look at different Expo stories, different Olympic stories, you recognize that unless we put in the right measures, we are going to transform this really exciting and memorable event into something that is negative, that people are complaining about, and that's not where we want to be. So we are very cognizant of it. We want to make sure that we don't end up in that bucket, and we will be putting in place regulatory measures to try to control it. As to where the economy is going in 2030 and beyond, I think one of the strengths that we have here in the UAE, and certainly that Dubai has, is the gravitational pull for talent. We're going to continue to want to be able to attract and retain high-end talent that goes beyond your traditional sectors of finance, real estate, tourism, etc. We would want to be able to create innovative industries to try to really take the knowledge economy category and take it to a more innovative and a more cutting edge, if you will, space. Thank you.
Oh, look, I knew this would happen. We've got 2 and a bit minutes left. Let's just here, sir, in the front, and perhaps if we've got a second microphone there, and I see another hand up over here. Keep your questions really short for us, because I know Her Excellency, I think, has another.
Hello. Thank you so much, Excellency. Please, I want to know some of the privileges and the impact that the Expo could have on Africa development. Could you please anticipate some of the impacts for Africa?
Covered that to a certain extent, yeah, but we'll answer that one. Yes, sir. Microphone here. Yep, we'll give you an answer on that one.
Your Excellency, I'll keep my question very short as well, because this gentleman's asked what I was going to ask as well. It was basically the impact of presenting the Dubai Expo 2020 and the challenges that you consider to be the greatest in doing that, and the parallels that African nations can sort of learn from in presenting their own unique opportunities to the world in the same way that you have successfully done for the Expo 2020.
Excellent.
So very briefly, entrepreneurs will benefit, the business community will benefit. They'll benefit across several areas and sectors, all dependent on what the Expo site or what their pavilion site will actually focus on. So that's the short answer to your question of who will benefit and how. It would be from a business and commercial standpoint and from an exposure standpoint. As to, I believe you're Kendall, or perhaps I'm mistaken because I thought I knew you. As to how can Africa learn from what Dubai has done in terms of presenting the bid, I think one of the most important lessons is get your story right, get the right governance and regulatory systems right, and then share your story persistently with determination again and again and again until you're blue in the face. Talk about why you believe, and you have to really believe it, because otherwise nobody's going to believe it either. You have to really believe that what you're offering is special, and that needs a lot of, really it just boils down to just 2 words. It's a lot of hard work.
A lot of hard work. Thank you very much indeed. Your Excellency, it's been fantastic. Thank you very much. We will let you go. You have a session starting in 1 minute. Thank you, everybody.